Hey, what's party? Welcome back to News Dose, and honestly, the game industry is a mess right now. I feel like it's kind of gotten to a boiling point, and it's become almost unsustainable. I mean, if you look at the AAA industry, it is in a bad situation, and mainly because I think it's been poorly managed. I mean, if you have to sell 5, 6, 7 million copies just to break even, then that should be your first clue that your budget is probably a little too high. But what's happening right now is a little bit different than just that, because some of the things that are currently going on aren't completely within the control of Sony, Nintendo, Xbox, and even Valve in this case. But they're certainly feeling it right now, and with some of the mistakes that the console makers have made this generation, it's all compounding together into this just catastrophic mess. So stick around and we're going to talk all about that, as well as a big remake from Xbox, or maybe even possibly two. Yeah, stay tuned for all of that as well, but first, I do want to thank my supporters on Patreon and on YouTube memberships. Thank you just so much for what you do, and you will receive this video through early access. Let's go get right into things, though, starting off with Forza Motorsport. I mean, there has been some speculation about its future because Microsoft laid off a lot of the studio earlier in the year, and there were reports about how they were being shifted over to a support studio for Forza Horizon 6, which ultimately has turned into the bigger series of the two. Well, today they officially confirmed that updates for Forza Motorsport will indeed end in 2026. They said, as our team shifts its focus toward delivering the best possible experience with Forza Horizon 6 in 2026, we do not plan to introduce new cars, tracks, features, or regular bug fixes for Forza Motorsport. However, we will continue supporting the game by keeping online servers active, hosting special events and competitions, and reintroducing previously released featured tours and reward cars on a monthly basis until all content is available for you to enjoy anytime. So I'd say this is a bit of a bittersweet moment. On one side, Forza Horizon 6 is going to have a lot of support next year, but for anybody who prefers the Motorsport series, this does kind of feel like it's taking a bit of a backseat from this point forward. Now, personally, I don't really view this as the end of the Motorsport series as some people do, because, I mean, if it was, Microsoft probably wouldn't have kept Turn 10 in the first place. They could have just simply axed the entire studio if that was the case, but they didn't. So I more so see this as a pause for the series until they find a reason to bring it back in the future with a brand new installment, which my guess will be for their next generation console. But because their current focus is on Horizon, admittedly that also could mean that it could be a long wait until the next Motorsport game. Now, we also got news for one of this year's best JRPGs, being Trails in the Sky First Chapter. If you like JRPGs with a good story and with good characters, I really can't recommend this game enough. But the thing is that it's really only a part of the overall story between Estelle and Joshua. I mean, if you beat the game, you're probably dying to know what happens next. And the good news here is that apparently you're not going to have to wait all that long. The remade sequel will be out next fall for PlayStation, Nintendo, and also for PC. So Falcom is seemingly pumping these games out, and my thing about that is that I do wonder if they're going to do the third chapter as well, because Trails in the Sky 3, while technically is a part of the original trilogy, it's still quite a bit different than the first two games. Now, personally, I hope they remake the entire trilogy, but at the very least, I'm still thrilled to know that we will at least get Part 2 next year. Oh, and we also got an update for PlayStation versus Tencent. Earlier in the year, Sony was pretty upset when Tencent announced Light of Motirum because, I mean, clearly, this game took its Horizon Zero Dawn inspiration to the next level. I mean, its key graphic alone almost resembles Horizon Zero Dawn 1-to-1, which is a pretty bold move to make. You know that saying of when you poke the bear, what happens? Yeah, that's kind of what happened here, because Sony filed a lawsuit against them, and it looks like they won. Now, you can see here that according to a filing, Sony and Tencent jointly asked the court to dismiss the case under a rule that allows both sides to end a lawsuit by agreement. The document makes it clear that this decision follows a confidential settlement between all parties involved. Now, interestingly, just before the filing, Light of Motirum was delisted from all major storefronts, which more or less means that Sony got exactly what they wanted. And I think that's the right move for Tencent to make. I mean, in my opinion, Light of Motirum looked pretty decent in terms of its gameplay. It doesn't look one-to-one with Horizon Zero Dawn from that perspective, but I think they took their artistic and character inspiration a little bit too far in this case. Really, by this point, it just kind of seemed like they were trying to fool their audience into believing that it was some kind of Horizon spinoff, which is why Sony drew umbrage with its marketing, or at least that's how I view it. The fact that they settled, though, tells me that the court was likely leaning in favor of Sony, but of course, there's always going to be varying opinions about things like this. So let me know what you think about this resolution. Do you agree with it or not? All right, now let's just go and get into the big story of the day, and that's the mess that is the game industry right now. I mean, the game industry has already been dealing with a lot of problems, mainly on the side of AAA and live service games. Really, the West in general has been on a downfall these past few years, but things just got a whole lot worse because it was just confirmed by Circana the United States video game hardware sales in November were the lowest by units sold since November of 1995 at just 1.6 million units sold. Now, you have to keep in mind that November is the most important month of the year for gaming, and the United States is also the biggest market for consoles. So the fact that they didn't pop off this year is extremely alarming, especially considering they tracked a fourth console being the next Playground. Apparently, it was actually the third best-selling console for November, with Xbox trailing behind in fourth place, which kind of tells you everything that you need to know about the state of Xbox consoles. But all in all, this is a very bad sign for the game industry as a whole. It takes a lot more money to make games now than it did back in 1995, so to see sales compared to 1995 is a really, really bad sign. I mean, like I said at the top of the video, it kind of feels like console gaming has reached a bit of a boiling point. Sony and Xbox's bad decisions have been plaguing them for years, and I think you can see that when you realize that a lot of people are jumping over to PC. A place where you don't have to pay for all of the subscriptions that consoles try to sell you, and is also the one place that just keeps growing and growing and growing, while consoles, on the other hand, have been mostly stagnant throughout this generation. And I've talked about this before. I mean, if you look at the PlayStation 5, it's, yes, sold a lot of units, and some people take that at face value without looking at the bigger picture. So, they try to tell you that it's a success, but no. At the end of the day, it's not enough because it's still being outpaced by the PlayStation 4, and the reason that's a bad situation in Sony's eyes is because their game budgets have almost tripled on the PlayStation 5. In other words, they allowed their budgets to increase this generation with the idea that they were going to reach more overall players. But instead, they kind of found out the best way to do that is to actually put their games on PC instead. Because again, that's the one place that's growing, while their consoles have been overall stagnant generation over generation. However, that's not even the biggest issue that Sony, Xbox, Nintendo, and even Valve are facing right now. The bigger issue this year is really in regards to the rising price of hardware components because of the AI boom. I mean, not only has RAM been skyrocketing, but now we're also hearing that other components could go up as well. And what that means for these console makers is that price goes up. I mean, if you look at 5 years ago, the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5, they launched at $500. Yet here we are, and instead of price going down like, a normal generation, instead they've gone up in price. The Xbox Series X is now $600+, and the PlayStation 5 is $550. And that doesn't even include their subscriptions, which have also gone up in price. So it's no surprise that less people are buying them. I mean, usually it's this part of the generation when price goes down to make them more accessible to people that, weren't willing to buy them early on. And the alarming part about that is that it could actually get worse next year. I mean, all you have to do is look at Valve, because they just announced their new Steam machine, but they can't even reveal the price because they don't know how much it's going to cost to make. And that tells you pretty much everything that you need to know. The console makers, including Valve, are in a very bad situation in terms of price. And I hate to say that. I want gaming to be accessible and successful. But as long as AI takes up all of these hardware components, then things could get really bad for the console market over the next couple years, and maybe not even just for this generation. I think given the circumstances, Xbox and Sony might want to consider delaying their next consoles, because I don't see how they can launch them in these type of conditions, because if they do, I mean, we could be talking about an $800 or possibly even a $1,000 plus console. And I know some people are going to say, well, then just buy a PC instead. But despite what I said earlier about how PC is the one place that's been growing, the reality is that these price hikes are also impacting PC as well. Now, if you already have a PC, then okay, that's perfectly fine. But if you want a new PC or if you want to build one, then now isn't exactly the best time to do that either. So yes, the game industry currently is in a tough spot. On one side, they need to widen their user base because they have these overly inflated budgets. But they also don't exactly have a great way to sell consoles faster because they keep raising price. Let me know what you think about this situation, though. Do you think that it's alarming, or is it just no big deal? Now, one last thing before we go, though, because it sounds like Halo 2 and Halo 3 could get the Halo campaign evolved treatment. Now, this comes from Reb Gaming, who claimed that he spoke to a former Halo Studios developer, and this led him to believe that Halo 2 and Halo 3 will get remakes. He has a whole video about this, so I'm going to go ahead and link that in the description below. Definitely go check it out. But I mean, I think this makes a lot of sense. You know, these are some of the most beloved games of all time, and Halo Studios, they've had a bit of a hard time following that up with their own brand new releases. So why not go back to the original trilogy and revive those, because that seems like fairly easy money for them. Now, to be completely fair, we do need to kind of see how much success Halo Campaign Evolved actually has. Now, for me personally, I'm not sure if I love the art style compared to the original. I kind of prefer the old art style, but, you know, I also know that's not going to stop me from playing it either. I really just hope the performance is a solid 60 FPS experience when all is said and done. I mean, if they can do that much and keep the game faithful to the original, then I think it'll be a big success. My only thing, though, is that they already remade Halo 2. So Halo 3, I think, is the game that most needs a remake, but it kind of sounds like they might do them all in order, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens with all this. For sure, though, I think this absolutely could be in their wheelhouse. You know, maybe they could have one team work on remakes while another team works on Halo 7. I think that could work fairly well. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode, but until next time, make sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and peace out.